Hello and welcome. This is Kevin, also known as AWOL. So today we are going to make the double of the Arrowhead bracelet. So if you saw last week's, you saw me put together a single version of this, and it was pretty cool and all. And of course, for this one, I had to I had to make it the hardest possible one. I didn't really think about it as far as like tutorials go, like how I should do things like in a sequence where do the easiest and then go to the next one, or so in the little one up in the top corner you can see that's like really sped up and whatever. And then here in the big screen you can see how I'm kind of setting it up. And mind you, I'm setting this up quite similar to like how I did the other one, right? So it's just a simple, basic, get the strings in the right sequence, and it goes from there. And the pattern for this will be available on my website again, as I usually do for these kind of things. Yeah, I mean, I could have just gone with going like them both in the same direction, or just using one set of colors. But I kind of got excited about the prospects of what would happen if we were to mix up the colors and mix up the direction. Now, as far as mixing up the directions, if you remember the second one video in this whole series on doubles, I'll put a link to that as well for you guys. That's where one is pointing downwards. Right? That time we were just using chevrons, but one was going downwards and one was going upwards. This has a similar like take on things as that, where except for it being not being a chevron, this time it's that arrowhead design, or I still like to think of this as just a zigzag, right? Typically, if you look at any of the zigzag patterns, it comes to a point, and where if you were to actually double it, you'd essentially end up with this. So it's how you look at it, I suppose. But anyways, most of the kids call this arrowhead, so I'll stick with that. So this is the brighter of the set. Now, when I was putting together the colors originally, when I had gotten this string, the pastel version of this is really light. It's really, yeah, I mean, look at that. But it still has 6 colors. It's still the same general kind of thing. And though it's a little bit harder to discern one color from another, it's still the same thing. And you can see I do the same stuff as far as like getting the colors in the right sequence, and then doing, in this case, it's the backwards 4 to get them all lined up. Just a single knot to get them all in the right sequence. And then on the other side, it's a regular figure 4. I had to be kind of careful at this point because the colors, some of them are a little bit tricky to kind of spot and make sure. Because essentially, most of the time when I'm putting together like any pattern, what I all really need from the pattern is what colors go in what sequence for starting it. After that, pretty much everything kind of falls into place as it should, is not provided that the pattern isn't too over the top complex. And typically if I'm working on something, I've kind of worked out what I was hoping to achieve in the long run. So typically I don't have too much trouble in regards to discerning like where things should be. It's just getting those colors at the beginning. So even if you could like say, let's say you picked up a pattern from somewhere on the internet, using the patterns generating thing that I have on my website can help you to maybe put something that you like of it right in the middle. And then you can work out, what's to go on in either direction, and then still be able to have a loop on it. I know a number of people who do something like that. They know what they want in the center, but instead of like working it out with graph paper, what they do is they'll just have a tassel on either end. And as clever as that is, I know for a fact that that's probably why you did it. So if you actually know like the whole, how many knots there are from the top to the bottom of your bracelet, and then you work out where your center is, and then you still have the loop on there, it kind of shows that you went an extra mile there. It shows that, you know, a little bit extra effort. So if you want to go that route, I recommend it. It's what I do. It may not be necessary, I suppose, but yeah, I like it that way better. I also kind of think that if you have the loop in it, you don't have to use quite as much string, because you have to really leave yourself a lot more string if you're going to have tails on either side. So again, preferences and just kind of explaining the how and why I do things the way I do. And here you can see every time it comes to that middle area, it has to bounce back, right? You have to keep the brights to the right and the dull ones to the left. Otherwise, this whole thing doesn't work. And see that the oranges are coming together there. And now this bright orange is going to connect with the dull orange. And bright orange goes to the right. Dull orange goes to the left. By about this point in the bracelet, I stopped needing the pattern. Mind you, I've done similar patterns to this in the past, so maybe that's just me. If you have to continue using it, totally makes sense. Especially, it probably makes a lot of sense if you are trying to do it like this, where you're doing the 2 different sets of colors. Mind you, I could have gone with a completely different, like rainbow one side and a fade on the other. It just happened to be that I had a couple kumis that were rainbow-ish, and I thought, you know, that's going to be fun. So a lot of possibilities here. I'm thinking maybe for next week, I'll do one that's sort of the same kind of instead of going like one up, one down, have maybe both coming down. So if that sounds cool, leave a comment, or if you got some kind of other idea, maybe we can do that as well. There's so many possibilities. There's really, I could do this doubles things for probably the rest of the year. So if you guys are done with that, you know, let me know. If you've got some ideas that you want to maybe have thrown in that's kind of on topic, that's cool. I'm trying to create a decent playlist, because that was part of my thought here, was that, you know, if somebody was starting out and they wanted to go from simple to complex, they could just watch a playlist and work with the bracelets one after the other. And that's why last week I was saying, try making the Arrowhead. And then this week, you know, it'd be more of a challenge. So obviously, true to my word, I made it really a challenge. Next week, I'll bring it back a little bit more intermediate-ish. And so that way, you know, anybody who is following along doesn't feel left out. Because it's real easy for me to just go in way over some people's heads. And I don't mean to. It's not a deliberate thing or whatever. It's just, I enjoy a challenge, and I come up with an idea and I think, wow, that's going to be a lot of fun. And so here we are. Yeah. And I love this bracelet. I think this one really is sort of, it's neat. I think it's a great conversation starter. I think if you guys are up for a challenge and been making bracelets for a little while, I say absolutely go for this one. See what you can do. Blow someone's mind. They'll, you know, this will make a great gift. Oh, you can notice too that I use that the bright ones are the ones that actually take up that center row. So anytime you join 2 different groups together, you kind of have to make that choice as to the middle row is the row that's actually joining things. So here, like closer up, you can actually see it better, right? So it's the dark ones that are getting that bit. I shot this footage. It's unfortunate it bounces around as much as it does. That's the board that's actually moving. I have it resting on my lap, which is way more comfortable for me. It just puts the work at a closer bit. Like when I have it up where the camera has it on my desk, if I do that for too long of a period, my back will start hurting. So ergonomics always, absolutely swear by it. Ruptured a disc in my lower back when I was like 19 years old, and it's plagued me my entire life. So take care of yourself. Believe me, when you get older, you will appreciate that completely. So, but yeah, no, this was a fun bracelet. And I don't know, I'm thinking this might be this month's winning bracelet or whatever for the my Patreon people. So every month I do a giveaway over on Patreon, and I was trying to figure out what was going to be for this month. I think this is going to be it, just because it was a lot of fun, and why not, right? So I just realized that's a pun. Why not? Oh, anyways. So if you have questions about this, let me know. If you've got thoughts or something, things you want me to cover, let me know. I just don't want to run out of ideas. So okay, so there's last week's, and there's this week's. So it's basically the same thing, except for obviously this one has. Let's zoom this in a little bit. So you can see how I played with the colors, and you can see how I lined the reds up with the red and orange with the orange, all that kind of stuff. So it's a fun way of challenging yourself. And I definitely think if you're going to be into doing bracelets and stuff, that's where it's at, is challenging yourself to do something different. Now, I gave it 4 tassels because there are 2 loops. So maybe next week what I could do is I could make the thing where I do it all in one color and just have one loop, and then show you how that works. Maybe that'd be the thing I could make that's different and makes it fun. So, yeah, unless you guys come up with something else and can get it in some kind of suggestion before I actually get to recording, because, like I said, I try to come up with as many ideas as I can. Obviously kind of limited by whatever imagination I have and kind of the directions I'm willing to take. So that, like I said, this ended up being a little bit more complicated. Not really great for putting things into sequence, but I don't know. Again, I still stand by my idea that this was fun. So, all right. Well, until next week, don't get your strings in a bunch.